All right, what's up? Welcome in GC Live Monday morning episode. We are here. I am Wes. He is Chris. Going to break down South Carolina's. Copy and paste all the words from the LSU game into the intro, and that's what you can say about this loss. But of course, before we get to it, Clint Hammond, ClintHammond.com, CMG Home Loans. I actually have a text from Clint right now that I need to go get to. I got a feeling it's pretty in depth about where things are. So looking forward to touching base with him today. And you should touch base with him as well if you are in the market for a new home. 803-422-6797. That's literally the same number I'm texting with him right now. So that is his number. That's not an office phone. That's not a secretary. That's not it's not a leave a message after the beep like that. That's him. Hit him up. NMLS number 71597. Hit up our guy Clint if you're in the market to either buy a home or even just want to see what you can afford and what that might look like for you to experience home ownership. Best mortgage guy in the Columbia area. Chris, man, that I tell you what. So the college football right now and South Carolina football right now, like I feel like if your team is finding a way to win these games, it's like never been better.
Yep.
And if you're on the South Carolina side of it right now, two out of the three losses, two that just you look at and you're like, man, that thing was right there. And I feel like we sort of had a thesis. We sort of had like a belief that, okay, like, man, the talent is just sort of spread out in college football right now. And the sort of anybody can beat anybody has been like supercharged. Like I feel like that's kind of always been the case because as we know, they're 18 and 22-year-old kids and we see upsets all the time, right? But I mean, to the extent that it is now, it is just insane. And so South Carolina as a 21-point underdog, which I do think, and it's easy to say this now, that was heavily affected, I think, by just the perception of, man, Carolina got smashed last week. Bama got upset. Just the perception was that South Carolina had no shot in this game. So
Sure.
I don't know if that was truly a line based on where the two teams are talent-wise. I think, from what we saw Saturday, the line shouldn't have been anywhere near that. But, I mean, you're sitting there if you're South Carolina. I'm going to go big picture first.
All right.
I think we are firmly in the two things can be true at once again category. And I'll take it a step farther. Not just two things can be true at once. Many things can be true at once. And so my two things can be true at once for this is that I think it's okay if you're in the category of, man, I'm proud of the guys. Like they went out there, they competed, they stayed in the fight. They were down 2 touchdowns early. It would have been easy to kind of, here we go again, especially after the way last week went. Stayed in the fight, hung in there, put themselves in a position to win the game. And the category of, look, hey, this is a good football team. They had a bad week last week.
Right.
That can be true. And simultaneously, it can be true that, hey, too many mistakes. The mistakes cost you. The mistakes kept you from, I thought it was interesting. Our guy Pascal in his column this week, The Verdict, talked about kicking down the door, basically. Like Carolina's been at the door. Can you kick the door down? And Beamer even used that same phrasing. I think that was in the teleconference, something about, walking through the door, kicking down the door. And so I think it's okay to also be frustrated. Like, hey, some of the same common denominator issues, attention to detail, penalties, mistakes, turnovers, stuff like that, kept you from being able to sort of get over that hill. Now, I do have a place where I draw the line, which is what I'm going to get to later on. But it's just it's an odd place to be in because I bet if you asked South Carolina fans in general going into that game, hey, would you be happy if Carolina like just competed their butts off but still lost the game in epic fashion? And they probably would have said, with the context of what happened last week and the context of, oh, we're a 3-touchdown underdog, I'd take it. But then when it happens in reality,
Yeah.
you're like, forget that. I want the win.
Yeah. Well, that's what most people say coming into a season. At some point you want a certain number of wins, and that varies, right? There's, as we know, there's no blanket answer consensus within not only the South Carolina fan base, but I'd say any fan base in college football, right? Or pro sports. There's not a consensus. Some people say, I'd be happy with 6 wins. Some people say, I need 10, whatever it may be. But you also get into the micro of, hey, in this particular game, I want to compete, or generally I want to be more competitive. There's been one game where South Carolina has not been competitive this year, Wes. It was the Ole Miss game. We all know that. We covered that. 2 others, LSU, Bama, big missed opportunities, right? They were competitive, but they didn't come out on the right side of those. And at some point, you do have to, as you said, Pascal, as Beamer alluded to, you do have to kick that door down because you're going to play other good teams this year, really good teams. And you don't want the story at the end of the season to be you had several should have or almost won games, right? At some point, can you maximize that potential? Can you go win some of those games? I think we've seen enough of South Carolina, and we've seen enough across college football to know that you can't take a 1-week sample and definitively say, I mean, we saw it this past week. A lot of people didn't think South Carolina would go compete on the road against Bama. Played awful against Ole Miss. Bama's going to be mad, quote unquote, or whatever the narrative was. Bama's still a really good football team, particularly on offense. So a lot of people thought they wouldn't compete. Man, Wes, when we got back from the game in Tuscaloosa, we went back to the place we were staying, and I was stressed out trying to go flip between all the great games that were on, 2 of which went to overtime, all of which were in the fourth quarter, down to the wire, right? And every single week, I mean, this is the most parity that I can recall in college football since I've been covering it, since I've been with Gamecock Central 15 years, been watching ball for a while. Maybe there's some other examples in the past of crazier years. This is the craziest, right? That doesn't make anybody feel good. When you're there, when you get yourself into position to win and you don't win, and then you look back on it, and it's like you said, to your point, some of those same issues, that's tough, right? So let me give you my 2 things can be true at once, right? Because I've seen some of this. This one may make not a lot of sense, but just bear with me. So on one hand, South Carolina has definitely, that's one thing you can say definitively about this team. They do have issues with turnovers, penalties, and mistakes, and a lot of times in critical moments. That has been a theme so far. Will it remain so for the rest of the season? I couldn't say, but it has been so far. It has been a theme, and it has cost them some opportunities. So that's an example of not maxing out what you have. On the other hand, one thing I've seen is, well, we being South Carolina, we have the talent to be a 9-win team, a 10-win, a playoff team in the 12-team playoff, but we're not maximizing it. When you look at South Carolina versus Alabama, Wes, if it just take off the garnet glasses, the crimson glasses, whatever, Bama does have more talent across the board than South Carolina. When I watched that game, that was 2 very evenly matched teams. That was just the eye test. You didn't watch that game and say, like, Bama going up 14-0, that wasn't a fluke. South Carolina answering with 19 points, that wasn't a fluke. 2 teams played that were evenly matched. Bama ended up winning, right? The point is, South Carolina, in some instances, has maybe punched above their weight in a couple games this season, even though they've come out on the wrong end. Now, I know that doesn't make sense because you're going to say you can't punch above your weight if you don't win. I think going on the road against Bama, who's still a really, really good team, and doing what they did had some impressive elements to it. But that was outweighed by the negative of what they have continued to do in some of those big situations, the turnovers, the penalties, drive killing, game ending, type of mistakes they've continued to make, right? So can they tweak those and turn those around while still leaning on the things that have gotten you here, which is hitting some big plays, explosive plays, and playing really good defense? That's the question. And I think week to week, it's honestly hard to answer that, man. It really is.
Yeah, it is. And dude, not to get too much into Alabama, but those fans they got a rude awakening, I feel like, because my takeaway from an Alabama perspective, Bama looked mortal. Like, you're just used to thinking of Bama like, oh, they're Alabama. And they're just gonna most games they play, unless they're playing one of the elite other, not just blue bloods, but unless they're playing a blue blood that is also at the top of their game, I feel like we're just used to the aura of Bama winning just as much as their talent, and then their talent just like steamrolls you. And I'm sitting there going, I mean, you were there, I was watching on TV. I was like, I mean, these two teams are competitive with each other. And you're watching, I mean, you're watching Kyle Kennard just hammer, just play after play. Carolina's defensive line, really in general. You're watching D Knight run down Jalen Milroe. You're watching OD Fortune, Nicky, Jalen Kilgore. I got to take there, by the way, man. I don't think we talk about Kilgore enough for just how good this kid has been since the moment he arrived on that defense. I mean, it's been instantaneous. He's had a great year so far. But you're sitting there watching and you're going, either team could really, like, here's what I think is scary from an Alabama perspective. You're sitting there, you're watching that game. Okay, just the way it played out, right? I don't feel like Carolina having a lead in the fourth quarter, Carolina coming back, I don't feel like that was a 1 out of 10 scenario. Like, you know how we talk about if they played 10 times, that to me, if you put those two teams out there, I mean, yeah, Bama, like maybe there's a couple of Milroe just goes off games or something. To me, it looked like a 6 out of 10 for a 21-point underdog.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you just said, hey, go play, I think Carolina's going to win several of them.
Yeah.
They did not look like a complete over. Carolina in the second half legitimately ran the football on Alabama. Mm-hmm. Not you had one explosive and 5 0-yard runs. Legitimately lined up, ran the football. And it wasn't all QB run. A lot of it was actually Bama seemed keyed on QB run, and a lot of it was Rocket and Attaway. So I don't know, man. I don't know about you being there. Like, I'm sure it was cool to just like see 100,000 people, the aura of Bama in that sense. But on the field, it's not really that far off.
No, very evenly matched teams. I mean, and you could go position group by position group and say, well, Bama's, certainly like at wide receiver, Bama, Ryan Williams, who didn't do much in the game, Wes. It was Jeremy Bernard and some others that really hurt the Gamecocks, but I mean, certainly like the defensive line for South Carolina, Kyle Kennard, Wes. I mean, this kid's one of the best defensive players that's ever come through South Carolina. Like, I've seen enough, like he was unreal in the game, and watching it back, live, from your vantage point, sometimes you're like, who even was that? Because they kind of came in waves. Kennard was unreal. To your point about Bama's aura, man, we get on beautiful campus in Alabama. It's my first time there, and just walking around, it feels big time. You know, you start thinking, you walk down Paul Bryant Avenue or whatever it is, you walk in front of the stadium and it's now Saban Field at Bryant-Denny. And you're just sitting there going, there's been a lot of games won here. A lot of championships have originated from this program. And it was funny. I got a chance to interact with a lot of Bama fans. We got there Thursday, so leading up to Saturday. And they just, Wes, have a completely different paradigm about football, right? Like to them, the concept of losing 2 football games in a row is totally foreign. It really is. And I'm not, not blaming them. That's just kind of how it is, historically, certainly in the Saban era. They've only had pockets where they weren't very good. The past, however long Saban was there, 10, 15 years, it's been elite. 17. And, for a lot of them, it was, I don't know what happened at Vandy. That was awful, but we're probably going to have to run up the score this week just to show what, and it's that kind of thing. I mean, literally I heard that more than once. And then you're sitting there looking around and they're just kind of in disbelief. And I talked to some people afterwards and who were out on the strip and things like that, right past the stadium, and all the Bama fans are clamoring for change because they won a game, and so just a completely different paradigm and way of thinking of things. But yeah, Wes is very evenly matched. Again, I did not watch the game and think any of it was a fluke. Were some of the plays that Carolina made at the end that gave them hope a little bit more improbable? Yeah, I mean, it's improbable. As good as Kai Kroger is, as great as that onside kick, the little drop kick was, is it improbable that he can get that spin that 2 Bama defenders have it under him, can't get it, and Carolina gets it? Yeah, there were some improbable things, right? But, I mean, they were toe-to-toe. And so that doesn't really lessen the sting. I mean, we definitely have some people that are in the camp of, I'm proud. We have some people that we need to stop being proud and start demanding, hey, let's actually win one of these games. You got some people in between. But it was a very close game. It wasn't fluky at all. And Wes, I think that's just the theme of the college football season, especially in the SEC this year. Missouri getting whooped by A&M wasn't a fluke. Missouri's really good. A&M looks like they're pretty darn good too. We've seen a lot of close games. We've seen a couple random blowouts. It's hard to tell week to week, and I don't think any of it's really a fluke. It's just teams are really evenly matched. If you play really poor, you can get blown out. Other than that, it's typically a mistake here or there that's going to win or lose you a game.
Yeah, and speaking of Kennard, man, on the broadcast, like they were singing his praises like crazy. Like it was crazy just how much the perception has changed of him in, now 5-6 games, and just the amount of praise he got, the fact that he's gone from, being a somewhat known transfer to, oh, hey, this guy's, I mean, I think you got to say probably a first round pick type projection. And so that's obviously great for him. That's great for the coaching staff. That's great for South Carolina's public perception in terms of recruiting. Sterling Lucas, I mean, Sterling is just stacking, I would say, chips in terms of evidence that he's a superstar coach. And, if I'm Carolina, everybody talks about NIL and, hey, we got to support this guy to keep him on the team and stuff. I know they've been very good to Sterling Lucas, but I'd be giving him another extension, honestly, this offseason, because he's been fantastic. Maybe throw a title in there or something. I don't know. But the job he's done recruiting the edge position and developing the edge position has been incredibly impressive. And those guys, honestly, man, those guys got after Milroe. He looked mortal as well. Like I think the ability to get on the outside and just make you look like you're running in mud is obviously incredible for Milroe against a lot of teams. But if you pressure him, then just like about any other quarterback, if you pressure him, he has some issues delivering the football. And Carolina was able to sort of at times get him out the pocket and he made his plays. Other times, I mean, you have D Knight, you have Nick E chasing him down. And, I thought it was just another sort of checkbox for the athleticism and speed of this defense overall. Like, not just the defensive line. Like, they got after it. OD Fortune obviously had a great day. It was like an overall team effort, I felt like, on defense. First drive, they probably won a couple of reps back.
Yep.
Last drive, they probably won a couple of reps back. But, I mean, we talked about it going in. What's a fair expectation for the defense in terms of holding Alabama's offense to this particular number? And they exceeded anything we even talked about, man. Like, you're talking about a late Bama touchdown when Carolina is in run stop mode, trying to get the ball back, as being the only thing that made it even close to them getting into the 30s, which they've scored, far more than that in every game they've played, basically.
Yeah, they have. I mean, what was the number, Wes? 31 is what Carolina needed to hold them to for that to be their lowest point total of the season. And so, yeah, I mean, there were some things. Look, I think you lose sight. I mean, that's a really, really, really good offensive team. I mean, Milroe's been on Heisman lists. They have a good, an improved offensive line. They have skill guys, whether it's tight end, receiver. They got talented running backs. I mean, they're loaded. They're Bama. And so on one hand, you can lament a few of the plays. Beamer used the term that they were too loose on, I think, the first drive, playing some man coverage, gave too much cushion. You could see that on tape. You have the busted play, Bama's last touchdown where you got a guy just running wide open and Milroe actually had some time, to let that develop and deliver that football. So yeah, there's some plays here and there, but Gamecocks also made some plays, right? I mean, they earned their interceptions, right? Like Jalen Kilgore, that pick. By the way, I mean, Wes, if I'm a Bama fan, and I heard some of them talking about this, weird decision at the end of the half by Kalen DeBoer to call that timeout. You're in 3rd and 20. I think you're on like your own 35. I mean, you don't have a lot going there. Eat the football, take it to the house, right, for halftime. Instead, you're coming out there throwing, and the Gamecocks were, I mean, you talk about the ball bouncing west the wrong way or just little things. I mean, they're one Bama offensive lineman who got, I think, 2 fingers on Jalen Kilgore to knock him out of bounds, or that's a pick 6. You have David Busey popping a ball out on a big hit. Doesn't go Carolina's way, right, later in the game. But you had that, and then OD Fortune doing an incredible job in zone coverage of baiting Milroe, into a pick. You had Kyle Kennard forcing the safety. Like, you gave up some plays, but you forced Bama into some bad plays. The thing about it, Wes, is both the defense and the offense did enough to win the game, right? There were just, again, some issues with turnovers and missed opportunities that cost you in the game again. And so can they turn that part around? That's the question that I think we all keep going to. I don't really think you can say this play lost you the game. I don't know if you disagree, Wes. You see a lot of people, this play lost it. I could pick out multiple plays.
Yeah, and I want to get into that with a particular player specifically. Because I mean, if you're saying player X lost the game, 1, you're being emotional. 2, you're displaying a just lack of football knowledge. Like the number of variables that go into every single play in a football game, it's like astronomical. So to sit there and say one person has the power to cost you a football game, unless they went out there and just threw 8 interceptions or something, which I don't think has ever happened in the history of football. Maybe it has. Then I'm with you. I don't believe in that at all. There was something else I wanted to hit before we dove into that, Chris. What was it? By the way, Bama's lowest point total before Saturday, 35. So, I mean, you're talking about really just even the way the game flowed. Like, yeah, Carolina had a bust at the end, the long drive at the beginning, but just the way the game flowed was not what Alabama has done all year. For most of this year, they're just kind of going up and down the field offensively. Even against Vandy, they are moving the ball all day long. And so, Chris, I think, the last bust. So somebody said, I think we let them score on the last one to get the ball back. I don't know if I'm ready to go there. Now, Beamer basically said, look, if they get the first down, then let them score. So you're in a third down situation. You do honestly want the stop. Like, you'd rather have the stop than for them to score a touchdown, because you're keeping it from where you're having to score a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Now, once it busted and they get loose in the secondary, really them scoring a touchdown was not the worst case scenario by far, as we saw. And if I'm a Bama fan, that's to me where I do have a little bit of concern as well. There's like some little dents here that you're going, and it's maybe the guy under Saban, maybe the player does the same exact thing. Like, we're all doing that thing where, Nick Saban team wouldn't have done that. Yeah. And we're ignoring the fact that the last couple of Bama teams under Saban were not your typical Bama teams, in my opinion. But, Chris, as soon as he scores, I'm going, nah, man, you got to down that thing on the one. Like, you got to kneel it. The way things have gone so far in this game, I turned to Mackenzie, my wife. I said, I got a feeling South Carolina's going to make this thing interesting, because it's kind of one of those things where you let a team in a game like that have life, and the football karma can come back and get you. And that's exactly what happened. So what did you think of Bama scoring the touchdown instead of just saying, I don't need the touchdown, I'll take the win?
Maybe splitting hairs, Wes, because you can. I mean, how much time is left on the clock at that point? You might have already said it.
It's under 2. I mean, the game is over. The game is literally over. Not it's probably over. Not you have to run. The game is over.
Yeah.
You're in kneel down territory.
Maybe the thought process there is that it's the whole anything can happen type of thing, which, as we saw, that no.
You got on a kneel down?
No, not on a kneel down. I'm just talking about on that particular play. Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think these are the things that Bama fans are talking about, which they have the luxury of doing that. They win a game and they can want to clean house for winning a game because it was too close, So it makes sense.
Here's my point. I feel like some of the things we're talking about right now that Carolina has done against LSU and versus Alabama that kind of keep you from winning games like that.
Yep.
Alabama did some of those same things on Saturday. Like, it was sort of a battle to see who would do like one less of those things. I feel like the decision you were talking about to call timeout before the first half is over, and then you throw the ball directly into coverage. And the weird thing about that timeout, dude, Carolina's D-line, like the previous 2 plays, like I know Carolina obviously had some wins on the D-line, but they had 2 direct, like you just watched the D-line just pin their ears back and instantly get pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So you're sitting there, first down, pressure, second down, pressure, and you're going, let's call a timeout and throw the ball into coverage on third down. To me, that felt a lot like the pressure of, this is Bama. The fans are going to be ticked off because the way this half is ending. We got to go make something happen.
Yeah.
And so to me, that was like I promise you Saban wouldn't have done that. Like, I feel pretty confident in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then just I was yelling at the guy for Bama at the end of the game. I was like, why is he still running the football after the interception? Now, I do, looking back, you can tell he's about to kneel the ball in the end zone, and then you can see his teammate yell at him, and I think he's thinking, could this be a safety?
Right, right.
Which, by the way, it would not have been. I've seen that on social media. Hey, Carolina was 1-0 down away from a tie game. They were not going to call a safety, but his momentum carries him into the end zone. But then he starts running the ball 30 yards downfield.
Trying to score. Yeah.
And I'm like looking at the clock. I'm like, the way this game has gone, for an instant, I had that moment. What if somebody blindsides him, ball fumbles, Carolina recovers it, in field goal range with a second to go? I mean, the way this game had gone to that point, it wouldn't have been that shocking. But, yeah, Bama made some of those just, in my opinion, head-scratching decisions or plays that I think, and the two things can be true at once in their category and on their side of things is, yeah, you're going to have to give a new staff some time. You can't compare them to Saban, but there are a few little just kind of alarming things from their perspective.
There are for sure. Hey, one more thing, Wes, before we move on to, so here's another thing. So this was going back to our point on one player not losing the game, or one player doesn't win the game either, right? So one player doesn't lose the game. This take on Alex Herrera, I've seen some of this. Again, same concept as a turnover or two turnovers. We could pick out 10 plays in the game, probably at least, that if Carolina makes this play or prevents Bama from making this play, Carolina might win. So to me, not hitting a 51-yard field goal that's not on the last play of the game does not lose you a game. It's also just, even if you disagree with me here, Eric, saying that Herrera can't hit anything past 30 yards is also just objectively inaccurate. He's made 4 kicks from 40 to 49. He's 4 of 6. Is he Mitch Jeter or Parker White? No, that's fair. And in fact, we talked about this a lot. We said there are going to be some kicks this season, and it was questionable because you don't feel as good as you did the past. I don't know. Carolina's been spoiled with kickers, right? So, number one, I mean, saying Herrera can't hit anything past 30 yards, I don't know if that was kind of a little hyperbolic. Not true. Number two, I get you'd love to have a kicker that you can put out there and you feel, hey, 51 yards, he's probably making this, Even in college ball, that's not incredibly common, but you can't say, oh, it's got to be up to our kicker to make. No, there were a bunch of other plays in that game that could have been made. You win as a team, you lose as a team. There's a bunch of other things there. One more thing, Wes, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. It was pointed out to me on that kick, Bama committed a penalty. Should have been a first down, 15 yards for Carolina. Defender jumped over somebody, which in that circumstance was actually fine, but he launched himself with the hand. That in the rule book is a 15-yard penalty. Didn't call it, missed it. Again, that did not lose you the game, right? But had it been called, at worst, if you gain no yards from there, you've got a 37-yard field goal or whatever the math is. So, it's that was just another, tough thing that happened in the game, I think.
Yeah, and it seems like I've seen that 30. Is that just a round number? I feel like I've seen multiple people say, I can't kick a field goal over 30.
It's just saying it, I think.
We do realize that if you kick the ball from the 30, that's not a 30-yard field goal. I do hope we realize that out there. Like his most of his misses have been long kicks. Like this is a 51-yarder at Alabama with the lead on the line in the fourth quarter. Like I get you'd love to see him make it, but the kicker cost us the game. That's like one of the most low rent, just terrible. Like that's a worse take than the quarterback stuff, in my opinion.
Well,
By a little bit.
Give us your takes on I know you have thoughts on the quarterback stuff. Let's hear
I
them.
do. I got a lot of takes, but first, by the way, did y'all? I just realized this looking at Game Time app.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if y'all. It never wants to focus when I get too close, but do y'all see that? Do y'all see that emoji? Did y'all realize that Carolina is the homecoming game for Oklahoma? Did you know that, Chris?
I did not know that.
Bulletin board material, man. But
Boy.
So, all right, if you're looking to go to, I know there's actually a big Morgan Wallen concert in Charlotte coming up. If you want to go out to Oklahoma, maybe last second, you're like, you know what? Hey, these two teams have never played. I want to go watch South Carolina, Oklahoma. I even got a tweet earlier this week saying, hey, man, use Game Time. Paraphrasing here. It was great. It was cheaper than I expected. And they are our ticket sponsor for this show and for Gamecock Central with the On3 network. Download the Game Time app today. Hit gametime.co if you'd rather just go online. And one of the cool things here, you always want to hit the little all-in pricing tab, which is the one on the right. Again, it's blurry, but the right little white bubble. And then hit GT Picks. And they're going to give you these super deals, amazing deals. Click right here. Hey, this ticket is in the top 1% of all tickets available to this game. 2 seats together right here. The other part, hey, you can just buy with Apple Pay. I hate when I try to buy something and then I have to get out the credit card and do all these different things. So easy to buy, all-in pricing so that you do not have all those fees get tacked on when you buy. And limited time only. Use code OWN3, ON3, to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but shout out again, Game Time app, gametime.co, our ticket sponsor here on GC Live. Guys, we got to take a deep breath on the Lenora Sellers take. And just some of the just crap that's out there is frankly just embarrassing. Like it is literally embarrassing. Like I cringe with some of the stuff I've read. And that's not to say you can't be like, hey, we got to protect the football better. Hey, these fumbles are hurting South Carolina. These fumbles are an issue. If we had Lenora on right now, or like, hey, are the fumbles an issue? He'd probably be like, yeah, they're an issue. They have to get fixed. Anybody with 2 eyeballs can see they have to get fixed, right? Like we can all agree. Can't turn the ball over on the road. If you're in a tight game and you have turnovers, you can probably look at that game and say, hey, if I can take away one of those turnovers, maybe I go win the game. I get it. But did y'all watch the other plays in the game? Like 23 for 31 for 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick at the end. Usually from your redshirt freshman quarterback is enough to go win the game. And I think we should be able to have a conversation about this is a young quarterback. You're going to have to take the good with the bad. And you can acknowledge that without saying ignorant things like, oh, leave the quarterback in Tuscaloosa on social media. Like what do you gain as a program from saying crap like that about your quarterback? Like it honestly is like, I feel like in some ways sports are in the best place they've ever been. And in other ways, they're in the worst place they've ever been. Cause it's honestly like sick. Like some of the crap that people say on the internet. And so Lenora Sellers cost us the game. Like, get the hell out of here. Like that stuff is ridiculous. And The other thing is, I do think there's irony in, Chris, how many times when a older quarterback, when a team has like an older veteran quarterback who is a little bit maybe less talented than the backup, how many times do we see people say, "Oh, just play the young guy. Play the young guy.
Live
He's
with the
way
mistake.
better. He's way more talented. We'll live with the mistakes." Well, guess what? You have your opportunity here. South Carolina is doing exactly what every fan on the planet has always said they wanted. That is, play the young guy, play the most talented guy, let him go play, let him make his mistakes. But then you are not willing to live with the mistakes when they happen. Guess what? There are going to be mistakes. He hasn't even been able to actually go consistently play in the games. So guess what? This stuff is going to happen. Again, are they an issue? Are the turnovers an issue? Did the turnovers hurt? Yes. I'm not saying they did not. Let me make that clear. I'm not saying they did not. But when you are literally bashing your redshirt freshman quarterback, your in-state quarterback, who I believe is going to be the face of your program before it's all over, you got to take a look in the mirror because it's ridiculous. And again, I'm not even saying you have to accept losing. Like, you can acknowledge a mistake without bashing the guy on social media. So if someone's response is, "Hey, his mistakes are hurting us," I agree. That's literally what I just said. But you can acknowledge that while also acknowledging he's a young quarterback, that he's incredibly talented. He does everything the right way. Is not going to embarrass your program. And you can call out mistakes while also calling out the fact that you are in the game in the first place because of plays that he is making.
Yep. And I think Cam makes a good point here. Accountability and bashing are two different things. And, so I
That's
think
literally what I'm saying, Cam.
that's exactly what you're saying. But we've seen a lot of too much bashing. I've seen, and this happened, Wes, after I think game 3 for South Carolina, which was embarrassing, but it's persisted now. I have literally seen more than one person saying Sellers is not an SEC quarterback. I saw this morning we have an athlete playing quarterback. This, embarrassing really is the best word for it. Because, again, we're not saying that he's been perfect as a player. I guess maybe, Wes, people think by game 6, and really he hasn't even had 6 games, as you pointed out. He's had more like, 4, basically, when you count all the snaps that he's had and the missing a game, missing time in games. I guess it goes out the window. The perspective of knowing, okay, he's going to have mistakes as a freshman goes out the window. And some people may argue and say, well, it's fine to have mistakes, just not like that, right? Not that type of mistake, not that situation. Again, I get that some of the mistakes have been huge, but you do kind of forget about the trade-off, right? You forget, about the trade-off of a lot of those. Did Sellers take some sacks where he held the ball too long against Bama? Yes. Did he get out of some situations where any other quarterback on the roster, or Spencer Rattler, or other quarterbacks we've seen come through South Carolina, would have 99% had to take a sack? Yes. Can anybody else? Robbie Ashford is obviously a runner, but your quarterback, can you have a guy that can run for 75 yards for a touchdown against an SEC opponent? That's not a typical thing. That's special type stuff. So I think it's okay to point out that there have been mistakes, but putting every single thing on Sellers, discounting anything good that he does, or having completely out of line, out of bounds, embarrassing takes like he can't play quarterback in the SEC, or writing off his entire career based on a 4 or 5 game sample size, it's terrible. I'm not surprised that we see some of it because that's just kind of where we are as a society. But come on, man.
Yeah, it's just bad, man. And again, I'm not saying you can't talk about the good and the bad and the ugly. Let's talk about it. But the personal attacks are, I don't know. It's disheartening to me because he does handle everything right. Like, he goes about his business the right way. Great dude, great family. And you're talking about, like you said, man, 4 games in, and really, I'd rather a guy have 4 straight games than what it's been for Sellers, who has kind of been in and out of the lineup, in, out, missed. Really, Akron game would have been the one opportunity, I think, to just kind of go play and throw the ball around and work on the passing game. I think that honestly was a big miss in terms of the injury, keeping him out of that. And I don't know, man. I think you look at, like, even a lot of these plays, go back and rewatch the game. Watch the game without the emotion of, oh God, missed opportunity. Go back. So the 2-point play, Carolina has an open receiver, and Sellers, I'm sure, wants that throw back. Like, I'm sure he does. At the same time, you go back and rewatch it, and you're like, at first I was like, oh man, he missed him. He had him. And then you look back, especially, I would, if you really want to go watch the game, go back and watch the Skycam version of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see, all right, he missed him. Like, is that a throw he is capable of making? Yes. But he also has a defender bearing down on him that hits him, I mean, the exact split second after he releases the football. Completely clean play. But I'm saying, it's not even like some of the throws. There was a throw he made third quarter. There's a throw he made to the sideline. Receiver catches it, but it was kind of one of those throws where you're like, all right, he caught the ball, but if that was a better throw, it's probably a bigger game. And if you watch that live, like, I remember thinking, he completed the pass, but wish it was a little more accurate on that one. Then you go back and watch it, and you're like, okay, he's got 2 guys bearing down on him, and he's throwing, like, literally around. I know y'all can't see my arm. He's throwing, like, around the defense. Like, he's going 3/4 because the defender is here, and still completes the pass. So how many plays did he make for you? Even just dropping the ball off to Rocket several times where he escapes the pocket, excuse me, flips the ball out to Rocket, gets you positive yards, takes off running, gets you positive yards. Like, those, staying on the field on those plays, because the way the game is, you have no idea how the game plays out differently if you don't extend those plays and then just have to punt. Like, they're like, who knows? Like, he makes these hidden plays that you probably don't catalog in your brain. Like, oh, remember that play that affect games. And I agree. The slide where he slid early on, short of the first down. Watching that live, I'm going, oh man, you got to just keep going, right?
Yep.
Like, we can acknowledge that it's a mistake, but at the same time, I go back and watch, and I'm like, why would he do that? And again, I still think you probably in that situation, because every football play that's run, there's context of that play. There's context of where you are in the game. There's context of down and distance. There's context of overall big picture. There's context of the even bigger picture. Guess what? You've been injured. And so I go, why would he slide there? And it wasn't because he was scared to get hit. He slid because, remember, in the offseason, he was asked in the press conference, how do you make the decision between running a guy over as a 240-pound quarterback versus getting out of bounds or getting down? And do y'all know what the coaching point was? If it's one guy, run his tail over. If it's 2 guys, get down. And so, yes, in context, I can get a first down. Rewatching that on film, I think the coaching point probably becomes, hey, yeah, in this situation, run through them both and get the first down. But as a young quarterback, you can even like there's a reason to everything you see. Even if with the view you can get by rewatching, you're going, why did you do that? But then you sort of go deeper. You're like, there's a reason for that. Why do you throw short of the sticks on a 3rd or 4th down? Because Bama is in a cover 0, a 0 pressure. They are bringing 6 guys and you have 5 blockers. So you shoot the ball out to the right with 2 blockers and you try to complete the pass and then convert the first down after the catch. So is that the call you want on in that situation? Hindsight, maybe not, but there's a reason for it. There's a reason you're doing what you do. And so I think when you know the reasons, it's easier to stomach and it's easier to sort of understand than in the heat of the moment, in the emotions of, oh, why did you do that? You just cost us. Like there are reasons for everything, I think.
Yeah, I think, to go back to the bigger point, man, like calling for, saying some of the things that have been said, especially, just generally, man, but especially at this point in a career, just out of line. And I think, look, there's going to come a time that the reason that people, first of all, we have too high expectations of quarterbacks just generally. It's fine to expect your quarterback to play well, but we're almost bordering on expecting perfection as a redshirt freshman who's played a handful of games against really good competition, by the way. We forget, Sellers goes on the road at Kentucky in his second ever start and wins 31-6. And then you got the people saying, well, if Kentucky would have picked up the fumbles. I mean, that's true, right? But, there's just, it's almost arguing to try to prove a point that he's not a good player. He is. And Wes, there's going to come a time where he's making those hidden plays that you're talking about still. He's making big time throws and plays, which we saw some of those in the Bama game. I mean, the throw to Nick Carver, how good of a throw was that? There's going to come a time, and the runs that he can make, whether it's picking up a first down, scrambling out of there, running for a 75-yard touchdown against this SEC team, he's going to make all of those categories of plays, and he's going to cut down on the turnovers. That will happen in his career. I don't know when it'll be. It might be in the back half of the season. It might be next year. Might be the year after that. I mean, I think it's going to happen sooner than later. He will cut down on them. And at that point, I really feel like there's some people that are going to have to come back and be like, oh, maybe I should have given Lenore Sellers more than 5 games before I demanded that he turned into a lab-grown best quarterback in the country, right? Now, I know some people aren't going that far. You may say, Chris, I'm just saying I don't want him to turn the ball over quite as much. Again, I agree. We all agree. Those have been costly. But don't take it so far as to write off his career or say this is 100% what he is and will remain throughout his entire career.
Yeah. What is that, Soder, Thomas? What is your point? So, Chris, I also think we have this thing with quarterbacks, the old let me screenshot or take a picture of a frame in a play and be like, oh, you missed that guy. What are you doing? Like, do y'all know how easy it is to sit there on your computer or on your couch or on your phone and be like, hey, you had an open guy. Why didn't you hit him? Like, go play the video game, which is obviously probably not, it's not even comparable, but just to give you a sense of how quickly, and this is you mashing a button, how quickly you have to look at 3, 4, or 5 different guys and decide who to throw the ball to based on a coverage, based on a route, based on protection. And then think about putting that into reality. I like the way Beamer said it, because Beamer was asked specifically about the throw deep that was picked off at the end of the game. If you could redo that play and you're Lenora Sellers are you throwing I guess in this sense, it was kind of a check down. It wasn't really a check down because it's 15, 20 yards downfield, but the shorter route, you had an open man, right? And if you could do it over, would you throw that pass, get out of bounds at the 30 or so, and then attempt a 47-yard field goal for the win? Absolutely. But the speed in which this thing is playing out at that moment, like, is there a little bit of panic of like, hey, let's just go see if Harbor can make a play again? Yeah, there is. But also, Bama's in 0 again. Dude, that was some of the most aggressive. I didn't realize it until Beamer said it. And then I was rewatching last night. I think the final 3 plays of the game, which usually a defense is going, hey, back everybody off, play deep. They go 0. Like, they're six rushers, 5 guys in coverage. Everybody's in one-on-one. I mean, that's some aggressive stuff, dude. Like, that's if Carolina hits that ball to Harbor, everybody is going, why don't you have a safety back?
Yeah, true.
I mean, they just said we're hitting blitz all, basically. And you'd have loved to see, I know Harbor never saw the ball, obviously. Like, you'd love to see him have a shot at it, right? But and the reality is, hey, this is football. Like, when you got guys bearing down on you, I have to go back and watch it again. But Carolina probably had 5 guys in the route on that play. At the very least, they had 4. So you're talking about just the numbers here. If you have 5 guys out in the routes and they have 6 rushers, you have a free rush guy. Is what you're making the decision. If this was a normal down and distance, you're going hit your hot, like hit the check down, get the ball out, right? But because of the situation, you're going to get the ball down the field. So in a split second, I think Sellers is just going, hey, let's see if Harbor can do it again. And it probably go back, watch the film. When he's a veteran quarterback down the line, maybe he says, nah, they're in 0, but they're also playing way off. It's not a typical man-to-man. They're saying, don't let anybody behind you.
Yep.
I probably have a check down, again, in quotes, for a pretty good gain. But also, is part of you thinking, Chris, if I complete this ball short of the sticks and don't get out of bounds, the game is over.
Yes. That I mean, that's where my head went. You don't know what happens, and if you throw it short of the sticks in that situation, a receiver could turn to try to get out of bounds and fall down, and then the game's over. We saw a game on Saturday end, because a quarterback,
slid too late.
Slid and time expires. So, it's easy to say, and that's a hard situation. That is not the same to me as, like, if you're going to pick your battles and pick your things to improve upon, an end of game, there's 11 seconds left or whatever it was, that you don't worry about that as much as you worry about the fumbles, right? The missed exchange where you're fumbling right after you just got a huge turnover. Those are the ones that I think, if you're being driven crazy by it, that's what you point to, not this end of game situation. I think there's been a little bit too much emphasis on that individual play at the end of the game, but there's been, frankly, Wes, a little too much emphasis on, hey, this play lost the game. This play lost the game. If there's that many plays you can point to, that means there's a bunch of them, right, that you could have made one way or another. Or if Bama didn't make this play or that play, key penalty on either side. Again, it was a close game. It came down to the wire. There's a bunch of plays you could have picked out one way or another.
For sure. All right, so we got to get out of here, y'all. Also have a radio show to get ready for. That's 11 to noon, as always, 107.5. But hey, real quick, Chris, how about the drop kick sidewinder?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Hey, Kyle might be onto something with that because
yeah.
I've never seen that thing hit before. Like I Googled like drop kick onside kicks. And so apparently, God, y'all know I don't watch a lot of NFL. Is Justin Tucker the Ravens kicker?
Yeah.
He's attempted one before there, and apparently it was like, it did not go well. When I Googled, there was one that popped up from college football a couple of years ago that was attempted, but did not convert. You look at onside kicks, they really, like, the percentages of actually converting them has gone way down over the years. That's one of the best ones I've ever seen in terms of like you said, it's always low percentage if you're onside kicking, but I feel like you feel better about that thing because the way it's spinning and then it spins back. Like, I don't even know what the coaching point is on how you recover that thing. And
well, two guys jumped on it, but I think it spun much. They spun so much they couldn't get their hands on it.
Yeah, and I mean,
yeah,
that was pretty sweet. Like you Beamer also credited that, hey, we have a dedicated special teams coach, so our guys can go work on things like that. And in this case, it paid off, man. That was cool. That was pretty special. But all right, so we'll be back tomorrow. So Tuesday, 2:00, Beamer will speak on Oklahoma, which I'm on record that the Gamecocks are winning this game. I'll go ahead and say it. I'm picking them. They bounce back this week and then go into the bye 4-3, and we'll see where things are from there. But all right, y'all, appreciate you joining us here with this Monday morning edition, liking the 9 a.m. time. Hope y'all are as well. For Chris, I am Wes. We'll see y'all.